they're updating the material. They're providing more diagrams. They're providing more pictures. So they're becoming more advanced knowledge workers.
Betsy's awesome, and Betsy can solve their billing issues, and Betsy could probably even reset their alarm.com password or whatever it is. But Betsy has no clue, sorry, Betsy, I'm just being honest, no clue how to set up some of these advanced scenes and things.
Team members have their own vernacular. They'll say panel, they'll say particular sensor, they'll say components within it. The customer's not always asking that. It's just like, hey, this thing's beeping at me.
Whether a system has been professionally installed or that system has been installed by a homeowner or business owner, that customer still needs support after the installation.
If you design the right guided experience, customers will absolutely utilize it.
All right. Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee Break with Jake. For those of you that are new to this call, we have this call every Friday at 11 a.m. And the purpose of the call is to bring together folks from all over the security industry to share best practices, to talk about challenges, and to identify opportunities. Selfishly, I host this call every week because the most important things I've learned from other people much smarter than me. And so I'm really excited to have with us today Derek Carter from FrontPoint. Today we're going to be talking about FrontPoint and how they have leveraged artificial intelligence to provide real support. I think most of the folks on the call here are traditional alarm company managers or owners. I think that for many of you, you look at DIY as the business model that you have not chosen. Maybe is a nice way to say it. Some of you may be totally against DIY, but I think that it's really important to learn from some of the people that are doing some really great stuff on the DIY space. And whether a system has been professionally installed or that system has been installed by a homeowner or business owner, that customer still needs support after the installation. And FrontPoint has done a really incredible job with that. And so I would like to introduce Derek. Derek, if you would, tell us where you're calling in from and just a very little bit about FrontPoint.
Yeah, absolutely, Jake. And thank you for having me. Apologies for the voice, by the way. Coming out of ISC West, that I feel like everybody probably, for most on the call, probably, when you attend, so many people, so many conversations, so many meetings, and so ended up losing my voice by the end of it. But I'm Derek Carter. I'm actually out of Las Vegas, Nevada, so I didn't have to travel too far for ISC West. I've been with FrontPoint Security since 2021. FrontPoint is, like you said, Jake, it's a DIY home security provider, one of the pioneers in the space. So one of the first to really offer security shipped directly to a customer with self setup, even before some of the bigger guys got into the industry and started offering solutions like Amazon and the Ring product. For FrontPoint, our big focus has been, as you put it, Jake, just ensuring that once the customer receives the system, it's very easy to set up, very easy to support from a hands-off perspective of not having technicians on site, and ensuring that it's intuitive, but also that they have what they need to ensure their homes and families are protected. And so, a little bit about me. I mean, my background, I'm actually newer to the security industry, but I started my journey at Zappos.com, working with the support center there, building a world-class culture, but also a support experience, and then worked with a company called Geotab that some here may be familiar with. It's a fleet telematics provider. So it's a device that provides driver feedback and real-time driving behavior that many companies have used for their technicians, in the home security industry, but also in the fleet industry across the world. And so, my focus has really been customer experience, building digital and AI solutions, and then looking at the operations from end to end and trying to reduce friction and set things up to scale.
That's really interesting. So many of the folks that I talk to, they're lifers in the security industry, right? They started in it, they've always been in it, and I really always love to get the perspective of folks that have been in other industries and see kind of some of the really great lessons and how their experiences shape their careers in the security industry. Zappos is a company that I'm very familiar with and a company that's known for legendary customer service. Could you tell me, what lessons from your experience with Geotabs or Zappos kind of shape how you lead operations at FrontPoint today?
Yeah, absolutely, Jake. I think, one of the things that I learned early in my career at Zappos is the importance of just starting at the ground level. When any position that you have at Zappos, and I believe this is still the case today, and this is, all the way up to C-level, whether you're joining accounting, marketing roles, you actually start with customer support training. So you learn the product, you learn the website, and then you're taking live customer calls. And I've taken that through my entire career, even with FrontPoint. I had a system shipped to me. I walked through the pain points of a customer. I called our support team, but then went through our training and took live customer calls. And I think experiencing it firsthand, both what the customers are having to deal with when they have challenges with your product, but also what your team members are dealing with, whether it's, technicians or those who are taking those live calls, it really does help you feel the friction, but where the experience can be improved and where customers are getting stuck. And so, I think that's something that I've, added to my playbook in every role. It builds empathy, but and more importantly, it exposes where things are broken, from internal processes, but also where customers are feeling it that you may not see in some of the transactional data.
When you came in as COO at FrontPoint, what did you see? You got a system, you installed it, you called support. What did you see right away that you thought, were some of the biggest operational opportunities?
So Jake, when I joined, just transparently, FrontPoint was a different company that it is today. I mean, it's been a bit of a turnaround story, to be quite honest. When I joined, this was at the tail end of 2021. So they were still, as a company, we were really still feeling the pain of hiring during the post pandemic, and the wait times were 60 to 90 minutes when you called in to the support center. And that sounds rough, but think of it from a DIY product perspective when that is your lifeline. That's the team that you're reaching out to get support. There's not technicians coming to the home. And so when when I experienced that, I knew coming in this was one big problem to solve, but feeling it live, even when I was setting up my own system, it just added to just the severity of the impact and what we were seeing. I mean, all over the business. Attrition was high, wait time was high. We were seeing the pain across the operational life cycle, and so that was really the number one problem to solve. But I also noticed internal processes for like unnecessary transfers, right? Having different departments where one team couldn't solve a particular issue, so it needed to be transferred to a billing department, or it needed to be transferred to a sales team member to add on a product. And so those were things that I quickly, talked to leaders within the company and said, we got to make this a better experience. We need more of a one-stop shop. I mean, first off, we need it done fast. We need to be able to connect to somebody in under 30 seconds. That's the experience today. And we need to ensure that when they're contacting, the team member that they're speaking with, they need to be able to handle all the problems there without having to have a transfer experience.
And I think that just boils down to good customer service. It's funny, I'm having flashbacks. A lot of people don't know this, but I originally, when I got started in this industry, I was selling alarm parts from my dad's stockroom on eBay, and people were buying it and installing it themselves. And to this day, I could probably still program a Vista 20p panel over the phone, listening to the beeps, to know when they were progressing through the menu. But I think about, the personal level of support that I provided back then, and I quickly realized, hey, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this. It's very hard to scale, right? Because you have to provide, support to people that don't necessarily understand the technology, or don't understand it as well as they think that they do. But I do remember, people being, really appreciative of support when they got it. And so, as you were kind of figuring out how to provide the best customer experience to these FrontPoint customers and an experience that you could scale, right? I mean, I think a lot of times when people are thinking about scale, there is segmentation, right? Like we need to have billing folks, we need to have technical folks, we need to have, customer service people. How do you kind of balance creating those operational efficiencies, right? Like having those folks that are really experts in the one particular thing with creating an experience that, customers feel, really happy about, makes them, loyal to FrontPoint. How do you balance that?
It's a great question, Jake, and I don't think there's a one size fits all approach, but I do think that providing the right tools to the to the members of the team so they feel empowered to make it a one contact resolution without having to transfer for simpler things. More often than not, when a customer reaches out, they don't have just one problem to solve. They may have a sensor that they want to troubleshoot, but they're also asking about, a small billing item, or they want to update a credit card. And when you give the team the ability to solve some of the smaller challenges without getting too technical, then you can make it a one-stop shop. But there are always going to be scenarios where, it's going to require somebody who is a SME in a particular area, or when you have to have hands-on and you have to have a technician go on site, you're going to have to deploy them. And when it gets more complex into the billing and they want a full breakdown, you may have to have those type of requests. But we looked at it as, where are team members making transfers that really ended up in smaller handle time that was solved quickly with another team, but also where were there handoffs that were taking a longer period of time because that team may not have been staffed appropriately, or it was just by design. Oh, these were requests that are always sent to this team. Asking the question, why? Oh, that's a good question. I could actually pull that report here and I can send that to them. And so
Right.
I think when and that's what has kind of shifted my perspective of, even if it's not you going through and living, step by step the customer experience, ensuring that your leaders have that mindset of, hey, have you walked through it? Like asking that question. I found myself joining meetings and just saying, people were talking about the metrics on a dashboard and they were like, but people are getting stuck here. And then I would just screen share from our website and I would walk through and go, what do you guys think about this? Like, do you think this is where somebody could get stuck? And people would go, oh, I haven't seen that before. I didn't know we had that on the site. I didn't know we had, a live chat button here. Okay, we probably should focus on that. And so, I think that's where the empowerment comes in, even for your leadership team, to just, you know, look at the dashboards that will help define where your team and your customers are getting stuck, but then dive into it and walk through it hands on and get your hands dirty.
One of the simplest things I've from operators, in the more traditional space, one of the simpler ways that they kind of improve on some of these things is just issue tracking. I mean, it sounds like you guys were, really getting very granular with how you were tracking it. But I think that if there's anybody on the call here that has customer service folks that are talking to your customers on a daily basis, and you're not logging what it is that that customer called in for and how you resolve that issue, it's really a missed opportunity. Would you agree with that, Derek? Like, do you think that, just at the very basic, very basis of it is understanding like, hey, why are people calling to begin with? Yeah.
100%. And what's interesting, Jake? Yeah, I could probably talk an entire hour on this subject. I'll
Sure.
skinny it down, but it's an evolving process. I mean, even for us, we had issue tracking where we would look at what is that particular team member putting the disposition of why the customer called. And you look at that data and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's whatever the first option's there, the team member is selecting that. Like it's the easiest one. And so we've gone through an evolution of it, but what we actually found, as we've gone through our digital health journey and really getting a help center set up, getting more of the AI intelligence behind the scenes. It's looking at what the customers are searching for. So if you have the ability where you can say, some of this is done in the IVR. If you have, hey, they're making this selection and then they're getting transferred to this person, that's a great data point. What are the customers searching for? Because then you have their verbiage too. Team members have their own vernacular. They say, they'll say panel, they'll say particular sensor, they'll say components within it. The customer's not always asking that. It's just like, hey,
Sure.
this thing's beeping at me and it's annoying me. Help me. and
Right, right,
and
right.
and so how they're searching for it also matters because then you can display the right data up front. But going through that journey has been incredibly helpful because we can see what they're searching for initially, where they're getting stuck in the process, and then where there's a disconnect between what we're providing from a knowledge perspective and then what the customer is searching for.
I think when you got started there, customers had been like essentially trained to call when they needed support. Is that a fair assessment? And what would you say, what are the I think the downsides almost seem obvious, but talk to us about what the downside is of customers just basically being trained to call when they need help with something.
The company was founded with the mindset, put our 1-800 number everywhere on every part of the site, everything we send out to a customer, ensure they have that 1-800 number ready. And we have FrontPoint lifers who have that support number saved in their phone. They know it. They have the central station number, but they have the FrontPoint support number on speed dial at the ready. And that's something that, I knew joining FrontPoint was a challenge, but I also saw it as it's a great opportunity because they see this their lifeline and they trust the team and they know that they're going to reach an expert when they do get a hold of our support staff. And so we took a different approach to introducing digital support without adding a lot of friction. You see companies that introduce a support site or even a complex IVR on the phone system where they require the customer to do all the work.
Yeah.
You've got to log in and then you have to enter your credentials for verification and then you'll have a knowledge base and then you have to search and you go
If you have your
through
support pin, and then if you
it.
do the two-factor authentication on your phone.
Exactly. And they're trying to get basic support and they have to go through 15 minutes of this process. Of course they're going to pick up the phone. And then you have other companies that are trying to introduce even more friction, hiding the phone number. We didn't want to do any of that. And so we really took a crawl, walk, run approach. We set up the support site with the knowledge that our team members have that we know helps to fix the problem. So ensure that the knowledge that you're putting out there is right and accurate and will solve the problem, but then introduce it in a less intrusive way. So starting from the IVR of, hey, we have the ability to help solve some of the easier problems. Here's a path for it. We're going to send you a product guide. We're going to send you a walkthrough, and not prevent them from reaching one of our team, but introduce it in a way of, hey, we know this will help fix some of the easier problems. Like I mentioned, not having a login and being able to search for support immediately, we started to see the customer resolution rate jump up 10, 15, 20, 25, up to 50% on our digital site, where customers really were solving their problems and solving them fast, and then rating the solution very positively. Hey, this worked great. I'm glad I didn't have to call. And that is what we aimed for. You'll hear in the contact center industry, you'll hear contact deflection is thrown out all the time. Try to get those calls away. Like try to prevent those calls. We don't want that. Ultimately, if they're not calling you for support and they're getting frustrated because they can't reach you, they're calling the competition and they're being called by the competition and they're going to switch providers. And so we want those calls, but we want them to be able to solve some of the simpler problems fast and get at least the initial troubleshooting done. So when they reach a member of our team, they're at step 5, and then the team members going through more of the complex solutions to really help them solve it or just validate. And again, I could talk on this subject for a while. I won't spend too much time, but the other thing that we saw that was really interesting, Jake, is we would have customers go through, solve the problem, and then they would just make a quick phone call to us and say, "Hey, I just want to check that I did it right." They just wanted validation. And so you'd have a call that would have been 30 minutes that dropped down to 30 seconds of just, "Hey, can you check if everything looks good?" "Okay, great. You guys are awesome. Okay, I'm done." And then the call's over.
That's so cool. I think that for a lot of the folks that are on the call, I think if they think about customer service and they think like, hey, we're gonna do this better. We're gonna and I guarantee that, there's folks on this call that have probably within the last few weeks had this conversation and said, hey, we need a support ticketing system, right? Like we're gonna solve all of our problems with a support ticketing system. And prior to the call, we discussed, you've said that traditional tools like a Zendesk or ticketing system aren't really built for guided troubleshooting. What would you say is kind of broken in that?
For us, we did actually move away from a traditional ticketing system. So you may have actually seen that somewhere, Jake. Maybe that raised the the
Yeah,
question.
I did a
Uh,
little homework.
did a little over. I mean, I think what we looked at is that the traditional ticketing systems were really transactional in basis. They, set up an easy intake. They would send a follow-up response to the customer, and then it was made for issue tracking. And in many cases, it's set up to, to show what's happening in the customer journey, but it was prolonging the customer journey. We were seeing step-by-step email correspondence going back and forth, and sometimes issues taking a week or longer to fix versus going through the flows that have pictures and have videos and have diagrams that are really helping customers without having to ask transactional questions through text. Wait, is this the sensor here? Or which one is it? What color should I be looking for? Should I be taking off the back of the panel? And we instead flipped to a solution that was more digital product guide focused, specifically related to product support that would walk them through with the right mediums that I mentioned, but also meet them where they were contacting us instead of trying to set it all into a ticketing system and trying to manage it that way. And I referenced this before, but focusing more on the initial help center, what customers are searching for, and then pulling that data of where they're resolving their issues so that we could make it more robust and then add it to different elements of the customer experience.
And so what you're describing, it's more than just kind of like house support articles, frequently asked questions. How does it? And honestly, sometimes frequently asked questions, great place for me to find solutions when I'm having issues with something. But when I need real support, when I've already, I feel like whenever I've needed support from a company that we were doing business with, it's like, hey, I've already, in an effort to avoid having to call in and go through an IVR and wait on hold and get transferred, it's like I'm going to try to figure it out on my own. How would you say your digital support kind of grew, maybe matured beyond just like a frequently asked questions and support articles and things like that?
I think that's one of the ways that we've leveraged AI internally, Jake, is we've developed more of a knowledge management program. And so when you look at ticketing systems that are very transactional, they're not necessarily doing anything to refine the material that you have or build a more robust troubleshooting setup at the intake of the customer experience. And so the best way to look at it is we're instead of it just being a here's a knowledge article like you described where you're going through I tried these steps, it didn't work. We're using AI to say, okay, well, customers are frequently getting stuck here. And we know that there's either a problem from a product perspective or there's a problem with the information that's being provided because it's not reaching a solution like these other 15 articles that we have that have a higher resolution rate. And the really cool thing and where the industry is going is it will suggest improvements. So our team has shifted a bit where I think it's important to talk about. The initial mindset was with a robust knowledge management program and digital self-service, it's going to replace jobs. That's not the case. It's actually making our team members' jobs more complicated and honestly a bit more rewarding. So instead of taking that same, as you described, customer went through, tried these troubleshooting steps, it didn't work, and now I'm taking another call explaining to them the same thing on how to fix this issue.
And you
They're
hear people say like, "Oh, I called support and they read me the same." It's like they were reading from the same
yeah,
article.
yeah.
Yeah.
They read from the same article, or even more frustrating. Oh yeah, we know about that issue. Here's what you do instead. Okay.
No.
Well, why didn't the article have that? And so
Right.
our team has evolved more to instead of giving that response like, oh yeah, we hear this all the time, do this instead. They're updating the material. They're providing more diagrams. They're providing more pictures. So they're becoming more advanced knowledge workers. And that's extremely rewarding to them because, I mean, honestly, do you want to take the same password reset call? Do you want to take the same call on, hey, tamper that sensor and that will fix it over and over and over again?
It depends on
Nobody
the
wants to do
day. Some
that.
days I
Yeah.
would take that.
True, true. Depending on depending
Yeah.
on how the day is going,
Yeah.
I agree. But for the team where they really thrive is getting more into the complex use cases. Oh, you're trying to set up an alert when a particular event happens, when a vehicle pulls up to the driveway, and you want to set up a really cool scene where the lights come on in the house, and then the system arms before you go to bed. They want to do things like that that are really, really going beyond just security. And so it's helped to evolve their role and they can do more of the work where it truly adds value to the customer and they feel good about it instead of the repeatable transactional work.
I think that's such a good and important example because I feel like many traditional alarm companies sometimes they shy away from some of those more advanced scenes and even talking to customers about all of the really cool things that their system could do because they realize like, hey, if they want to do this, and I'm sure everybody right now that's on the call that is customer facing, they've had these customers that like have done so much research on what the system can do that it kind of drives them a little nuts because they're like, hey, this person's always calling for this, and if you're not geared up, right, like if when that person calls the office, they get Betsy, and Betsy's awesome, and Betsy can solve their billing issues, and Betsy could probably even reset their alarm.com password or whatever it is. But Betsy has no clue, sorry, Betsy, I'm just being honest, no clue how to set up some of these advanced scenes and things. But for a lot of customers, there's so much value in that. And so your ability to provide an experience where they can get to that level of full and complete use of their system and its capabilities, I think that probably translates to, lower attrition. I have no stats to back that up, but I think that the stats would show a better customer experience leads to lower attrition. I'm sure you have some stats on that.
Definitely do, Jake. And I think I talked a little bit about the team working on more complex use cases, but what it also opened up the opportunity to present is, like I mentioned, the customer would call for just assurance on they did everything right. Hey, can you give me just a quick system check that I did it the right way? What we've been able to do is we introduced a proactive retention program to the team where we actually give them incentives for identifying when that person called in, seeing that they're out of contract and saying, hey, also, just want to quickly talk with you about a really great deal we have. You've been loyal to FrontPoint for 6 years. If you're open to signing another 3-year renewal, here's a new camera that we just put out there, a wireless doorbell camera. We can send you a free one and we can get you into a new contract. How does that sound? And we've been able to set a point where we're now averaging a 38-month renewal on these proactive renewals instead of, I think different people have done outreach when people are coming up on contract renewal. We're doing that as part of the customer support life cycle. And Team members get a small incentive for it. The customer feels good about it because we have risk scoring, high, medium, low risk, and we can work that into the support transaction. So it doesn't feel like an extra call, it's just part of the support experience. And that has helped us tremendously from an attrition perspective, but also in just keeping customers loyal and in contract.
Yeah, and I think that's a cool, again, because so many of the folks that are on the call are traditional companies that would many of them would think of, oh goodness, if we gave away a free video doorbell or free, camera, we're gonna have to roll a truck out to go do that. And like, again, I think that's, as even traditional companies are trying to figure out, hey, how can we best support our customers? Just think about, I'm thinking about the opportunity of having such great support that you could offer a product like that to a customer and know that confidently, like, hey, they're going to get this, and when they get it, they're going to be able to go to our website and activate it, or we're going to send it pre-activated, or if they absolutely need some help, they're going to be able to reach somebody because Betsy's gone online and taken her training and she's ready to rock on this now. I just think it's a really cool opportunity for retention. And that's a segue because sometimes we get to offer people really cool products that they want and they know that they want it. And if we give them that, they may stay, right? Like, they may be really happy and they may stay. But I think one of the bigger challenges is when somebody needs something for their system so that they can stay online, and you need them to get that thing, and everybody knows where I'm going with this. It's not so far from the last 3G 4G sunset that we don't remember the pain that came from having to upgrade all of these subscribers. And even if the company was willing to provide a free communicator, they still had all of this cost associated with rolling a truck, installing it, having to schedule around a subscriber's availability. And I know that that was a really huge undertaking for FrontPoint. Talk to me about the 3G sunset and how it kind of became a defining use case for these support systems. Walk us through how you guys handled the sunset.
Yeah, that was, I will say, Jake, on top of the support wait time challenge, that was one of my number one problems to solve coming into FrontPoint because we had a huge subscriber base. I'm sure, like many, that were still in the 3G, 4G transition, and we had a delicate balance. And we had one added layer of complexity. We wanted to make outreach to these customers and make additional touch points, but they would hit a 60 to 90-minute wait from our support perspective at the time. And so we had to really methodically balance how we were reaching out to them. But this is what the proving ground really was for the AI product solution that we implemented. We used the 3G, 4G as the test case of bringing this on for digital help, and had members of the team that had done this and done it extremely well to make it a standardized process for the radio swap as well as for a full panel swap if we were doing an upgrade. And obviously, a very high volume, highly repeatable issue. Customers needed to upgrade the equipment, and we had to rethink how we were doing this. As we defined that material, we ensured that it worked, and we made sure that it was polished for each of these cases. We tested it with some of our more friendly customers, those that we know were low risk, really wanted to do this themselves and work through it. And we had them provide us feedback on what we modeled ourselves, what we had gone through, what we had saw as this is perfect. Well, no, they shot holes in it. they
Oh,
they
no.
they found a way to break it. They said, wait, what screwdriver do I use? How do I do this? I mean, this is not the simple tamper a sensor. This is a radio swap. And
Yeah.
so we wanted to make sure it was fully polished. We got customer feedback, and then we deployed it in the help center, even going as far as proactively sending out equipment to the customer with the equipment that they needed to set it up, even if they didn't have the basic tools, and then with a full walkthrough and a follow-up call scheduled to be able to go through with them so that they had confidence that they were doing it right, and then a check at the end of the process. And so, the moral of the story with this is if you design the right guided experience, customers will absolutely utilize it. Now, granted, they want the right mediums. They want pictures, they want videos, they want step-by-step guides. This is an investment. But when you look at what that does for reducing truck rolls in the long run, it makes a huge difference. And many times, especially in challenges in having technicians or maybe having to wait longer to schedule a technician when staffing is tough, being able to get something in front of the customer that they feel confident about, they will go through it. And if they feel confident that the material matches what they want to see and that it is going to help resolve the issue, they will go through it. And I think in this process we learned that it helped it build internal confidence for us in just deploying a digital and AI driven support solution that we could find where the customer was facing friction and meet them there and refine the material. But it really led to a faster resolution and overall success in the program that we deployed. And it wasn't without its hiccups along the way, that's for sure. And I mean, we we found different ways to even upgrade other components of their system to ensure that they felt good about the extra time that they were having to put in to this because again was not a simple troubleshooting. This was not a 5 minute task. This is 30 to 45 minutes that they were having to do as they were making these panel swaps.
I don't think anybody came out of the 3G sunset thinking, man, I'm glad that happened. Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, hey, it's a really good example of what you can do and can accomplish when the stakes are very high and you absolutely have to do it. And then once you've been able to prove that, hey, this works, we can solve this very complex issue with these tools. How can we apply this very same strategy to all of those other things that, maybe the stakes aren't as high, but, customer experience is still an important piece. And this obviously can prove that. So are you glad that 3G sunset happened now that you're on the other side of it?
And now that I'm on the other side of it, I think it was great lessons learned for us that have really expanded our digital offering and everything that we're doing from an AI support perspective. So as painful as it was going through it, I am definitely glad that we did go through it because it helped mature the entire organization. I mean, we we cut down on some of our transfer processes that we had. We developed many of the proactive renewal strategies that we have now. We really got prescriptive on how we define risk level within our customers on those that are extremely high risk down to low risk for attrition, just because of things that we have from a data perspective on what's happening with their panel, how often they're arming, really a lot of the data that we farm and ensure that we have a good pulse on the customer. And so I think for how it has matured the organization, I'm glad we went through it. Would I want to go through it again? Absolutely not. It was, but
My
we
therapist
definitely,
says
yeah,
my therapist says you can multiple truths it, right? Like it's bad that it happened, but also there's some good stuff here that came from it, right?
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
All right, cool. So we're talking about how you guys have leveraged, tools and AI to better support your customers. I get so excited about some of the cool things that I can do with AI now. The most exciting, most recently, has been my son realized that we could take pictures of each other and then have Chat GPT turn us into like vampires or zombies.
Oh yeah,
And he really likes that, right? But a lot of people are excited about AI and the business use cases. I think some people are getting a little wild with AI, like maybe taking it too far. And then some other folks are super skeptical of it. And so how did you like internally keep the conversation around AI grounded so that it was kind of a measured approach to implementation?
Jake, I think AI is the buzzword everywhere. I mean, it has pretty much with every solution, everybody you talk with, every company, they're thinking about AI in some way, shape, or form. And I think with FrontPoint, our approach was not leading with AI, it was leading with the problem to solve. And, the 3G, 4G transition was the first problem to solve. But in general, as we've approached it, we've been we've been really asking the question, where are customers getting stuck and how do we solve this better and how do we solve it with AI? And we started small. We proved that it worked with the 3G, 4G transition. And then we have, we have the benefit of extremely long tenured support staff at FrontPoint. These are loyal FrontPoint team members. All of them have systems in their home, and this has helped us build an incredible, robust knowledge base that we have that we use in the design of the AI and automation. And I think that's what many people are missing when they look at this, because it's one thing to say, hey, scrub everything from what's available for a Qualysys panel and put some knowledge base articles together. Okay, great. But for your business, what you do on a day-to-day, your processes, how your team works, everything that you're doing to support, whether it's internal or outside customers, everybody does it differently. Everybody's got a different flavor. And so you
I
have to
always
look.
I always enjoy
Yeah,
like looking over somebody's shoulder and being like, I never knew we could do it that way. Like that's so much easier. I'm dumb.
ex- exactly. And we all can learn from each other. And I think that everybody's really great in different areas. But when it comes to the AI and automation, it's what are you looking to achieve, and then what do you currently have from like a knowledge perspective? And our key measurable outcomes, like what we were looking for, is faster resolution. We wanted customers to be able to either reach us faster, but also be able to solve problems faster themselves, reduce the handle time when they do reach a member of our team with giving them the right knowledge and the right information that they need right up front, and then improving the customer experience overall, ensuring that every flow, every knowledge article they go through, every interaction, that they're rating it as an amazing customer experience. We measure CSAT and our overall NPS. And then, really importantly, positioning AI as something that supports our team but doesn't replace them. And I think that many people, especially the skeptics as they're looking at this, they're skeptical that it's a full team member replacement. And it is not. You can't look at it from that lens. Our best agents, the team members that have been with us the longest, they've become more effective, and this has helped driving adoption internally. They'll talk about it with each other, saying, "Hey, this is really cool. I've been able to work on this alarm.com issue here because I have this knowledge article and I pulled this over," and they go, "Oh, that's great. I'm going to link it to a customer." They're solving more complex problems and not the same repeatable problems that I mentioned, and that's helped make their job more rewarding. And so I think as we've looked at it, it's been a little bit of a change management process. It's been finding the measurable outcomes that we wanted to address, but most importantly, looking at it from where are customers getting stuck and how can we do it better. And those have really been our guiding principles of deploying it internally.
Before we wrap up, I really wanted to touch on one more area with you, Derek, because FrontPoint's growth story, it isn't just about serving direct customers. You're also thinking about how those capabilities that you've developed can help dealers and other security providers in modernizing their offerings and reducing truck rolls. What does that mean? What does that mean for FrontPoint? What does that mean for dealers?
Yeah, Jake, I think where we've come to a point of, from FrontPoint's journey is we're building it, we're trying, and we're continuously evolving this. Don't get me wrong, we're building it for ourselves, but we're honestly not trying to outcompete anyone in this. We're really looking to help modernize the industry. And, for what we're doing now, we're and this is something we're really excited about. We're working with other dealers and partners in how they can deploy this type of solution, how they can reduce friction, how they can reduce truck rolls, and really help self-serve the customers they have in different types of support ecosystems. As I've come into the industry, I've seen there, and you said this too, there are security lifers. There are people that are in the industry. This is their lifeblood. They've built these relationships over the years, and I love that. But I've also seen that there's fragmentation. There's great operators, there's great business, but running different support models, some of them older support models that have been built over the years that work, but could add additional support and could add reduced customer friction on that front end component, whether it's the internal teams that are working together or just that initial customer intake. And so where FrontPoint has, been on their evolutionary journey is we're starting to work with different dealers and businesses on how we can help them enhance the support infrastructure, making it more modern. We've also worked with local regional dealers that are getting at the point where they want to transition, they want to retire, they want to sell their account portfolio, but they want to continue operating it with their brand in mind. And so we've worked with a couple of acquisitions that we've done where we've kept the local presence, we've added the digital support infrastructure, and then we've actually used their team and their local installers to continue to support when a technician's required. Because the model that I described, believe me, we know it doesn't work for everybody. There are contracts out there, there are technicians that customers work with in the day-to-day, but we can add that additional support infrastructure up front to reduce costs. And I think that, what we're really excited about is just helping others in modernizing the industry, looking at digital self-service, AI-powered troubleshooting, and overall, reduction in customer friction. And so it's not a necessity to build everything from scratch. We can learn from each other and find ways to improve the industry overall.
Very cool. Very cool. And so if a dealer is interested in learning more about that, guys, after the call or prior to the call, you got an email from me. Feel free to just respond to that email. I'll be happy to loop you in with Derek's team. Derek, do you think that there's any specific pain points in the traditional service model that are overdue for change?
I think in the traditional service model, one of the areas that we're really and we're still very early in testing this, but I think the traditional voice experience today is in need of a big revamp. And I'd say we're not the experts on this yet. We're definitely testing, developing, but what drives me crazy, and this is not just in the security industry, this is overall, are complicated IVRs where you have to make multiple selections to get a hold of who you need to talk to. You're transferred around, you're passed around different teams, and it's an abysmal customer experience. It's not great. And what we're introducing is AI in that portion of the program. The ability to just speak, a small phrase of what you're trying to solve, get some of the additional information right off the bat, and then ensure that the person that you're talking to next knows everything about you, knows what you've done before, knows the steps you've already done, and is ready to just kick it off. I don't want to repeat myself 15 times. I don't want to verify again. I don't want to go through troubleshooting steps again. And I also don't want to click 15 buttons to get a hold of somebody. And so I think the voice component is prime for a revamp. And we're doing some of the testing to try to be the pioneers there in making that pre-support experience amazing so that they get right to the person that can help them immediately.
I think that's so cool, and that's such a hard thing to scale. Earlier in the call, I threw a little shade on Betsy, right? But for so many small companies, Betsy is the human version of that, right? Betsy knows all of the customers. Betsy is there and friendly that, when they call in with an issue, she can kind of de-escalate it and then make sure that they get to the right person that can help them. But I think what most companies find is that Betsy doesn't scale, right? Like we need to be able, we need a Betsy-like service, but we need it at scale and where we can leverage really smart, human intelligence and artificial intelligence while measuring KPIs and making sure that the outcomes that we're getting to are the outcomes that we want, which, and which ultimately is just an awesome customer experience, right? Because that's how we win and lose customers, is on that experience. Derek, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story today. I want to thank you for, explaining how FrontPoint has really pioneered some incredible tools for support. I want everybody on the call to think about just how valuable it could be to leverage tools to reduce truck rolls and solve problems quickly for your customers, because that not only reduces your costs, but it does lead to a really awesome customer experience. If you have questions, feel free to email in after the call. We'll get you connected. But Derek, I just want to thank you so much for being here. I do want to point out before we go, guys, we have this call every Friday at 11 a.m. We're going to have another call next week. I'm really excited about and we'll send you out some information on that. If you don't do business with us today, I want to invite you to reach out to us. I'd love to serve you as your distribution partner. If you do business with us, thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you. But whether you do business with us or not, you are always welcome on Coffee Break with Jake. I'm so glad that you're here, and I wish all of you a very happy Easter. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Jake, for having me, and thank you everybody for attending. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Jake. Like you mentioned, always happy to help with anything that I could do to help improve the customer experience.
Thanks so much, Derek.